All right, welcome everyone. So, welcome to the GTM Playbooks with Claude Code. So, my name is Nafal. I'm the head of go-to-market engineering at Understory, and I also run the GTM APAC community, which is a space for GTM operators in Asia. And we're doing kind of all the good stuff when it comes to GTM and working for top agencies and in-house operators as well. So if you're here today, you're probably heard of Claude Code on LinkedIn and how it's been a game changer for outbound and for just GTM in general. And today, we have, in my opinion, one of the four of the best operators in the space, and we're literally going to get in the weeds and share our screen and kind of show you real life examples of how they're doing, how they're using Claude Code. So no fluff, no slides, just real builds and real talk. So yeah. How are we all doing, guys?
Fantastic.
Feeling good, man.
Thanks for having me on.
All good.
Thank you. Good. Excited to be here, everyone.
Love it. So I'll introduce the panel. So I'll introduce first of all Kushagra Tiwari. So he's the principal GTM engineer at Starbridge. He's a top 4 Clay Cup finalist, right? So in my opinion, he's one of the best GTM engineers in the space. So welcome, Kush.
Thanks, Nofal. Great to be here. Pretty excited to just see what Andrew and Mitch also have. Yeah, ready to get started.
Love it. And then next we've got Andrew Osborne. So he's my colleague actually at Understory. He's a GTM engineer. He has a background in software engineering. So he already knew how to code before Claude Code. But I think Claude Code has definitely kind of increased kind of his output and he's our power user in Understory. How are you doing, man?
Yeah. I'm doing well, man. Thank you for the introduction as well. Really looking forward to speaking to everyone, getting to know some more, kind of go back and forth, see what everyone else is doing, what I can integrate into my own workflows. Yeah, really keen to share what I've done. I'm so much in the weeds nowadays, so everything I'm building is very much tangible to my everyday. So I'm hoping that some people can get something to walk away with.
Love that. And last but not least, we've got Mitchell Keller. So he's the co-founder of Legro AI. We actually go way back. We met way back in our old course community. Do you remember Mitch?
Of course, yeah. Before Clay was even Eric was talking about Clay. I think it was even before that, which is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy. It was. Yeah, I remember before Clay I was doing something called GPT for Sheets. Where it was like GPT within a Google sheet.
I was doing the same thing, yeah. And I was like one of the first guys to start building scrapers for DICE and tech roles. And so I was just I launched my agency. I onboarded 6 recruiting companies day one and just was running that workflow before you think you could even get an Apify scraper for scraping LinkedIn jobs. So yeah, old school for sure. Things are a lot easier now.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, it's good to have you. Full circle moment for sure. All right, well, and so that's it for the panel. So we're just going to go straight into it. I'm going to start with Andrew. He's going to showcase, what he's building and how he's kind of operating Claude Code at Understory. So I'll leave it to you, man.
Yeah, for sure. Let me go ahead and share my screen and kind of just talk about a very quick use case that I want to share with you guys, because otherwise I'd be talking for way too long. Can everyone hear me okay, by the way? All good for everyone? Sweet.
All good.
Nice, sweet. Let me share my entire screen. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Terrible. Now, how do I... Cool. Sweet. So what I want to talk about here is I wanted to show you guys a quick walkthrough around building campaigns, but then what I realized, most of you guys here are already building campaigns every day. You pretty much know how to build campaigns. So I want to talk more about optimizing campaigns and how I'm doing this leveraging Claude Code. So I'm going to show you guys a very simple use case from a client that we're working with. Essentially, this client, they have an event management software where they integrate with HubSpot. So think of field marketers, event marketers, even CMOs. They are struggling to see ROI on the events that they're running. They can leverage this tool that we provide to better give you an ROI into your events if they're actually affecting deals downstream. Right? That's the sort of context. And so I've got a few live campaigns. At Understory, we like to segment our campaigns. So we might take a huge TAM and then create different segments within that TAM, regularly hosting events. They have no events person, etc., etc. And from there, of course, we then begin to craft different offers and different like value propositions. And so when we initially launch a campaign, maybe 2-3 days, I want to check and see, is this campaign working? If it's not working, what can I actually use tangibly to improve the campaign without having to write new ideas out of fluff? So I want to show you guys what I'm doing here in Claude Code. And first, I'll kind of give you guys a walkthrough of how my Claude Code is set up from someone that works at Understory who's dealing with multiple clients. So I've got different folders here for my clients that I'm going to try and stay well away from. And different stuff here, as you can see, different scripts, different logs, different setups that I have. All of these scripts essentially work with different things that we're using on a day-to-day basis, whether it's Clay, whether it's Gina MCP, whether it's any other tool that we're kind of scraping from. If I dive into my skills a little bit, you're going to see something interesting. I actually do not have that many skills. And the reason being is because everything that I have here, I use every single day. I'm very much against pulling like 100 skills from a giveaway and trying to plug it into your Claude Code. I do not think it will help you. I think it will actually do the opposite. So all of these skills are things that I've built slowly, day by day, to add to what I'm currently doing. Something for client communications, something for daily planning. So every single day, if I say to Claude, plan my day, it will run this script, which basically pulls from Slack, pulls from my Google Calendar, pulls from Fireflies to basically tell me what's the most important things that I need to work on that day. And again, a bunch of other stuff that I'm not going to get into just now. But I'm going to pan you guys down to this workshop file, which is the only one that I'm going to open today, and kind of give you guys an explanation of how each of our clients is usually set up. So for a client, we have a folder here called files. This will basically contain intake files, any demo call scripts, and a bunch of other things that I will then usually use to run the different skills that you saw above. Now, in the use case that I just spoke about, we've launched a campaign, we've launched a variant, it's doing pretty well, but I want to improve it. I've got this campaign variant generator skill, where basically what it does, it pulls from instantly. It will also look at any demo call notes that our client has given to us, and it will then begin to propose new variants that might be more effective. And so I'll kind of show you how it works. If I open up this demo call analysis here, what you can see is, I'll do the preview motion. What you can see is whenever we work with a client, we ask them to give us a bunch of demo calls of previous people they've worked with. I then process those demo calls to try and extract like pain points that every single person is talking about. So again, event management software, these guys are talking about living in spreadsheets. They can't prove ROI, under-resourced, post-event follow-up is really slow. So I use all of this analysis along with pulling from instantly to then run this skill. So as you can see, it starts to cross-reference and give me a bunch of new variants, and it gives a reason as to why that variant will actually be valuable. It'll say, look, well, this person mentioned attribution pain, this other persona mentioned this, and it will then give me more variants in relation to what it saw in previous campaigns or analysis from demo calls. And again, I like to keep my tests very, very small. So the opener stays the same, the call to action stays the same. The only thing I want to change is the pain statement. So based off of what we're getting from the demo call feedback or the bad replies and instantly, but then using that to then infer campaigns moving forward. So if I come to the campaign, one of the campaigns here, regularly hosting, you can see this is the initial variant that I had, and this is the new variant that got added based off of a demo call. And you can see the pain statement got changed to talking more about the data being a gut feel based off of what we saw in the demo call. And so did all of that. I said, yep, I really, really like this. This is all human in the loop. I don't like to just let Claude push anything to instantly without me overlooking it first. And then what I say at the end, once I'm happy with it, I quite literally tell it to push it right into instantly. So if I come back over here, you can see it pushes it into instantly, a new variant with the new copy. So I'm not jumping from tab to tab. I'm not jumping from context to context. Everything is happening directly inside of my terminal. So that's a very, very quick use case. Any questions before I kind of talk about some other things? And I can't see you guys, so I don't know if anyone's asking any questions.
No, all good on my side. Mitchell or Kush?
Good as well.
Honestly, I'm most excited by the daily stand up. I got to implement that from the start of the
Oh, really?
conversation. But
Bro,
this looks sick, man. So maybe
daily
walk
planner,
through
huh?
like I think a lot of people are thinking about like whether they should be replacing clay or not. What about this
Great
workflow makes
question.
you want to avoid clay, and where do you draw that line in the sand for yourself?
Yeah, no, great question. I know there's a big push on LinkedIn to replace Clay. It's not something that I'm doing at the moment. Again, me being someone that's very, I'm working on client campaigns every single day, and I'm trying to drive client results. So all I'm focusing on right now is how can I improve my client results. And right now, trying to move my whole Clay into Claude Code isn't going to give me the ROI that I think it will. I think the more important things for me to be working on right now is augmentation. So not automating, but augmenting. So augmenting means how can we make it better as opposed to how can we automate it and make it quicker. And the main thing for me right now is pulling demo call transcripts. What are prospects actually saying? And how can I very quickly use that to improve the campaigns and launch them in 5 minutes rather than taking like maybe 30 minutes to go through it manually. So to answer your question, I'm not spending much time right now looking at like staying away from Clay. We're very much using Clay. I am staying away from the instantly UI. Everything's happening inside of Claude Code, but I'm very much an advocate for Clay and will be for the time being.
I'm in the same boat. I can agree more.
One question from me on that human in the loop in your workflows, right? I have often seen that when you're checking numbers and even certain things using Claude Code, it is sometimes it will give you answers which are not right. How do you, are you, when you're reviewing stuff, are you still in that terminal view, or do you pivot at times to a different view based on the output that Claude is providing and then go dig in somewhere and then come back? What does that workflow look like for you?
So the main question is around, you said sometimes they can get what wrong, sorry?
So, for example, numbers. Let's say that I was doing a reply analysis, digging into my replies, positive response rates, and it was fetching details from MCP that was a part of my skill. And then what happened was it was trying to make up certain numbers just because it confused the number with a date. So, in terms of circumventing those kind of errors, when you're reviewing stuff, do you stay in that terminal view and review things, still work with Claude there and iterate? Or do you go to some other views to review stuff and then come back?
Yeah, that's a great question. So two things there. So one, yes, I do. I always review. I'll open up the preview. I'll actually look through the file itself. But another thing is I use a lot of scripts. So Claude Code is great. AI is great, but AI is probabilistic, right? It's a probability that it's going to do something. Whereas using scripts and using actual code is deterministic. So if you write a script, it's always going to behave how you expect it to behave. So how that translates to your question is whenever I'm trying to do any workflow that is centered around like aggregating numbers, I'm always turning that into a script. So we have a script here which basically pulls like instantly replies to create like a reporting. I use a script for that because Claude Code just always gets calculations wrong. And so I use the deterministic Claude Code to call, sorry, the probabilistic Claude Code to call a deterministic script where I can be sure that the output is going to be consistent. So yeah, a bit of human in the loop, but also using scripts to make sure that the that things are usually accurate.
That
Hope
makes
that
sense.
makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense for sure.
Sweet. Nice one.
Got it.
Any cues in the file? I can't see any of you guys, man.
Yeah, right now, you see the chat. How are you, so question from Sam, how are you accessing clay enrichments from here if you need them? The ability to use CLI is what got me exploring cargo this week, or just going straight to parallel from within the terminal using Claude Code. So, I mean, yeah, that can answer a bit late actually with Mitchell's
Yeah,
walkthrough, all right?
yeah. I think Mitchell will have a better answer for you there, Sam.
But yeah, nothing on this one for now. Did you have anything
Yeah,
else you wanted to
sweet.
share, or is that it for now?
No, I want to be mindful. I know there's still the other two to go, so maybe I can swing back at the end. I think I'll leave it as that for now.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Will this be record? Will the record be short?
Yeah. All right. Cool. Sweet. All right. We'll go to Kush. If you can share next.
Yeah.
your workflow.
Cool. Let me start sharing. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we can.
So what I want to do is probably talk quickly through my overall setup and then narrow down to one thing that we can just run on this particular screen sharing, and then happy to take some questions. So my core tech stack, I work in-house at Starbridge as a GTM engineer. So my workflows are repeatable and same. My core tech stack looks like this these days. I use Claude Code for orchestration. All of my TAM actually is already in Supabase. So what happens is more often than not, I am just pulling information, then finding contacts via an API or finding companies via an API. All of that is already pre-processed and done. So in execution, often for my campaigns on a monthly basis, I am more often than not just pulling data from my Supabase and trying to keep things afresh, making sure that there is no data decay. But most of my data already is in Supabase, stored as accounts, contacts, enrichments, and synced with my CRM, which is Salesforce. For storage and versioning, actually, I use GitHub. So in GitHub, very similar to what Andrew was showing, I have my own skills that I tend to use. I have references to my Supabase, how database is set up. I have certain tasks that I can run remotely. All of those things reside, especially in terms of versioning. After every session, I push things to my GitHub to make sure everything is up to date. Certain times I don't want to run things locally. Let's say that I am doing a large scale enrichment. I don't tend to do that on my local system, which runs for, let's say, a day or more. I would like to ideally move those things to something which is async, runs in the background, somewhere in the cloud. And for that, I use trigger.dev. Trigger.dev also is something which I use for workflows that are triggered by my team members and not me. Whenever there is a recurring, repeatable use case, that is something that I would like to talk about as well. Then those things move to trigger.dev and they run async. Very similar to Andrew, I'm using Clay for a couple of things, not trying to replace everything in my tech stack, although those things are limited. But Clay Agent I have not found a good enough alternative for, and still in some one-off cases I'm using Waterfall in Clay, so those are still my use cases. Email Bison for sequencing, and then Slack for comms, right? So quick overview, wouldn't go too deep into it. What I actually want to go into is skills. Core thing I feel like in my workflow is just using skills, and I want to talk a bit about how I like to structure my skills. What are the decision making factors in terms of my thought process when trying to build a skill and work with Claude in terms of execution. Does that sound good? We can jump into like then just a smaller execution of finding offline businesses using one of my skills that I've made, and I can talk through why I made certain things a certain way. Does that sound good?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sounds great,
please.
man. Let's do it. I'm excited, man. Love it.
All right. So this is my Claude Code. What you will see is I like to be hands-on, and I don't like to let Claude Code, maybe it's paranoia more than anything, but I don't like Claude Code to take over everything, especially because the scale that I usually run enrichments in, the scale that I usually run, let's say scoring in, that's fairly large. At times when I'm doing smaller campaigns, I let Claude do the heavy lifting, but more often than not, I am trying to work with Claude rather than just offloading my decisions to Claude and then let it run. How does that manifest itself into a skill? Let's say that over here, what I would likely do is just say / and Serper find offline businesses, right? That is the skill that I want to use right now. And then because the skill already tells it that you have to go step by step, it will ask me what type of businesses you're trying to look for. Now, in the background, for people who are already very familiar with this, I'm sure like most of the audiences, we are still using Serper in the background, but the script that is triggering is basically controlled by the skill that we have come up with. Now, what does that look like? I want to, let's say, just target dental offices, right? So my business logic is it will ask me what are the keywords. It will also try to suggest certain keywords, right? It wouldn't just target dental offices. It will be like, okay, because you're trying to target dental offices, these are the other things that you might want to include. And then I can tell it that, okay, out of all of these keywords, I actually want to do 1, 2, and 3, right? So it's trying to like circumvent certain things that I would overlook because I have put that effort upfront when I was trying to configure this skill. Then it tells me, usually what I will do is, this is my business logic, that I will target states by population. So it tells me that, look, California, Texas, Florida are the top ones. Do you want to go step by step, or do you just want to run it for all 50 states? I'll be like, okay, let's just do for 1, 2, 3 first. And then we will come back, probably do a dry run, and then run it for everything else later, right? So it will tell me, okay, I got it.
Can everyone still see a screen?
I can't see I can't see your screen anymore, bro.
Oh, that's weird. When did it stop?
Just like 5 seconds ago.
I see.
Yeah.
That's weird. Probably.
You were cooking too much, man. It couldn't handle the heat.
Do you see it now? Back again?
Yes.
You're back.
Okay. So certain times what happens is you want to go granular and do it via cities. So it will ask me, do you want to do it at a state level or city level? So I'll say like top 3 cities in all states. And then it should ideally ask me for filters, right? So it will be like, there are certain defaults and there are certain things that it knows already that it has to dedupe on the basis of this. Again, this is again something which is part of the skill, does not come out of the box from Serper, right? And we want to filter on meetings. So, we want to filter on minimum ratings, right? So I'm going to say 4+ rating all other defaults. Cool. So it will give me an estimate. Now, because we're doing like a very small run, it doesn't matter. But when I'm trying to run it for the entire US state with all of the keywords, then this matters. So it will tell me like an estimate before I burn through those credits. And then I'll be like, okay, good to go. Let's run this. Then also what happens is I have the option of basically pushing all of this information to my Clay table. So it will ask me once it does that run that, do you want to push this data into Clay? Now, why do I want to push it into Clay? Because I still want to use Clay Agent to find people in these offline businesses. And it will, once it runs things, it will tell me that, okay, this is the run ID, these are the results. I'm not going to lose any data from my runs. It gets synced to my GitHub as well for versioning. And then I'll be basically like, okay, we want to send this to Clay. How do I send this to Clay? I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste this, and it will start sending those results, streaming it into my Clay table. And it will also ask me actually for this list, for this particular run, these are the titles that you might want to target. So I'll be like, okay, let's just target owners. And then why does this matter? It matters because as soon as I start sending the data, that will automatically have the right job title. And then that will automatically get referenced over here and then written to the people table. So that's a quick example of a skill that I have structured and how I usually like to work with skills. And then it starts flowing over here in my Clay table. People are found using Clay Agent and then written over here. So this is like a flow that works in tandem with Claude Code and Clay because I'm using different things that I prefer in different systems. But that's how I would otherwise usually structure my skills as well. Another example, if we have time, that I would like to show is something that the entire team at Starbridge uses and is like a core part of our meetings booked conversions, is this Slack bot that generates Gamma reports and PDF report automatically. It's not executed via Claude Code, but I built it primarily just using Claude Code, and it uses still trigger.dev, it uses Supabase, and that's something that the entire AE team, BDR team uses to generate reports and then send it out to prospects. So happy to talk through that, but the main Claude Code execution demo was the main thing that I wanted to show.
That was nice, man. That was so good.
Amazing.
It was a really good example of like leveraging Claude Code and Clay. Really, because I would have done the exact same thing as you've done, like pushing a webhook into Clay and leveraging Clayagent. Because I see someone asked about why not use Claude's web search, and yeah, Mitchell said cause concurrency, queue handling, but there's so many other things that people don't realize that Clayagent does under the hood. It's able to like pull from sites like LinkedIn, Amazon, all these other things that you'd need to set up with your own proxies to bypass. Clayagent just does it all for you, and that's things that you don't want to overlook. So yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, just to add to that, I actually did, so there was a scoring that I did recently for a lot of contacts in my TAM. And before I did that scoring, I did estimates on what it would take for me to replicate my entire run via Claude Code that I would otherwise do with Clay Agent. And then what it had to do was there were a couple of things where it had to do web search. I feel like wherever web search is not required, you can still plug in an API from OpenAI or Claude and then replicate whatever you might do with a Clay agent in Clay. But wherever web search or scraping is required, there the costs are never comparable. I actually used Parallel as well as Exa for my scoring for web search, and the costs were always higher than what Clay agent provided me. So my default is still Clay agent because of its scraping and web search capabilities at the cost that it gives it.
Nice.
I would say, to add on to that, the only place that you can really beat Clayagent is on workflows that don't require actually accessing website information. So like he was just using Serper there. One of the things I'm going to link at the end of this is the kind of auto research system I modeled off of Karpathy's work, but it uses Serper in the same sense to basically build out agentic workflows and then uses Spider for small samples and does it in loops. It'll tell you if it can find the information off a website versus on a website. For a lot of, for instance, like news-based workflows, it can be way better to just do Serper plus an AI model to take a look at the top 10 results.
That 100% with you on that.
Perfect. Nafal, are you sharing anything or do you want me to dive in?
No, you go.
Perfect. Okay, I can share two things. So at the end of this, I'll also share a repo for the Disco-like CLI because I think it's one of the best things you can use inside of Claude Code. And then I'll speak a little bit on, this summary broke. Let me see here. / by the way, summarize what we did here. I'll speak a little bit on the Clay CLI, maybe in a little bit more detail, because I think there's a few things that actually, when I first started using the CLI months ago, that I think weren't really all that possible. And when I initially kind of mapped it out for myself, that Brandon Charleston actually recently made possible. So we can kind of go through that because I think that's an exciting kind of piece of the puzzle here as we use these systems. But I'd like to preface everything that behind the fact that the only way Clay is cheaper is if you're on a legacy plan. So everything we've been saying here is partially because we are power users at the end of the day, and we've been using Clay for a long time. But anyone that's entering this kind of their own accord, you may want to consider modeling a lot of these systems on something like, I don't know, something like OpenRow. I think it's like 0row GitHub. You can kind of make your own Clay, model it on Sheets and go back towards that. Or some new things have come out like the DeepLine CLI that help you orchestrate these things a little bit more easily. My computer is absolutely crashing out now that I'm sharing my screen here, but that's okay. The first thing I want to share with you guys is this idea of where I think Claude really shines actually is self-annealment. So what you're looking at here is a reply report. And so to give you like an under the hood explanation of what's happening behind the scenes here, basically what we have is the Bison CLI and Supabase setup combined with a GitHub that I mentioned earlier, which kind of covers our auto research system that creates things like, how do we build a pattern that gets us, competitors 91% of the time through Google and simple scraping in 7 steps or less, right? And so it'll just continue to self-anneal and self-loop on that pattern until it figures it out, given some sort of budget. Well, what we can do is get unmatched intelligence extracted from every positive reply in our campaigns. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you kind of like this initial report audit here. So let me switch the screen I'm sharing. And you can uncover things that you otherwise wouldn't uncover from campaigns without, significant effort. So what this does is it spawns, parallel agents on this data, working on getting this to be something that's like actually embedded for ourselves. But basically what it does is it goes through your campaigns, it figures out what copy is working, what's not, and it finds you the sweet spot patterns that exist. Now, our next evolution of this is now to take it over to Clay. which may be weird for a lot of people because like the Clay exodus is the big thing right now. But for the most part, Clay is going to let you to do a lot of things with data, especially on data enrichments that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. A few examples that come to mind for this workflow are being able to very quickly check for historical hiring data with their stack, right? Can I see, how many people they hired inside of sales positions, for instance, for lead grow over the last 6 months? Going to be pretty good to use their stack for something like that. Do I want people that are dedicated to outbound? Do I want to know if they were dedicated to go-to-market engineering? What you can do is go through and peel back the layers of their team structure, their team hierarchy across LinkedIn, and then using the Clay CLI, you can create something called a tunnel. So a tunnel is basically going to let you push data into a Clay table, wait, and pull it back out. And this is Brandon Charleson's innovation. The crazy part is Cloudflare gives you so much free usage that you can take that tunnel and basically do it for free up to like 100,000 times per month. Or no, 100,000 times per day is Cloudflare limit, which basically means if you're a freelancer or if you're just working for a business, you can just use this stuff for free the entire time. And same goes for Cloudflare's new crawl endpoint, by the way. I would heavily recommend checking out some of Cloudflare's docs for reducing costs while working with Claude Code. So let's talk about what's happening here. It's identifying patterns across clients after doing deep research. It's doing things like checking their news. It's doing things like checking to see if they were actively posting on LinkedIn. We can see that LinkedIn active founders were our worst converting hypothesis to meetings, even though, it was our best converting hypothesis from an evergreen point of view, but from a cold point of view, it was a little bit less on a booking rate. We know that the sweet spot is actually 11 to 50. And this actually goes against our client's hypothesis, which is that their sweet spot is companies that are in the 200 employee range plus. That's just the companies that they love to work with. It's not the companies that say yes the most often, right? And so you want to go deeper on this stuff and get down to booking rate, but things like this are things I would never notice just looking at the reply data. International prospects are hitting gold. I would never notice that many high-intent companies are challenger brands. I would never notice that the bottleneck is post-audit follow-up and that there's a gap in our reply times. I would never notice these things without doing these analysis. What we do is we take these analysis and recreate our ICP over time. And especially on the persona front, which is saying that founders or managers tend to book more meetings than founders. But I believe it also says that 38% of founders happen to be the ones saying yes. You can see company size distributions, seniority distributions in terms of interested replies. And you begin to map out an ICP that's a little bit more granular over time. As we dip our toes into Clay, we can identify even bigger things, such as which of these companies has a CMO on the team, if it's a marketing offer? Which of these companies has a head of marketing on the team versus not? Does that correlate with our booking rates across founders? The beauty of this is you can find 2x optimizations in campaigns literally latently sitting there just for you. Because all of the people that don't meet these criteria can be stripped out when it comes to how you go about your targeting. Specifically for our manufacturing client, we discovered that every single company that said yes was someone with a paint shop. And the way we could identify that they had a paint shop in their facility was a job title that existed on the team, which is spray booth operator, right? And so that was a manual effort because we don't have this automated through Clay yet. But to show you what automating through Clay looks like, I can dip my toes into the next workflow, but I'll pause there and leave it open for questions. I think Claude Code for data analysis is like number one use case, create loops, and then inform your next steps. But any questions? I'll leave it open to the chat. Make sure that makes sense.
Yeah, this is so good, man, and I'll definitely agree with you. Like Claude Code's ability to just pull so much data and just pull insights out of it is just night and day better than humans. And then from this, you can then action what you think is the next logical step. I totally agree. One question I've got around the demographics: are you pushing all of this data into Bison, like the company size, or are you then enriching it afterwards? What's your process?
So our bison data has a lot, like especially in the notes section. We add additional data. All of this would definitely be in the bison data. And then we send out research agents to identify other things that may be missing on a per campaign basis. So
Got you.
check for news. Like, are they active in news? Are they actively posting PR? Start to do analysis on their tech stack if it's available from the bison data, and just surface patterns. Yeah, IT and services being highest reply rate is pretty interesting. It's mostly companies classifying themselves as that, even though they're SaaS, 100%. Just from knowing the campaign, of course, some intuition. But I think the deeper you go, the better. And I think the way that we're starting to view campaigns is that we want to start off with the list as the message and actually let the campaigns tell us the signals that matter, if that makes sense. So over time, if you get the workflow right, there's no problem investing in, an absolute ridiculous amount of money, like $1, $2, $3 per lead that comes through, to identify everything you can know about it and then surface patterns that inform the next campaign. I think this creates cleaner iteration loops. And for me, this is the most beneficial use case. We can take these iteration loops, and for some clients, we can apply them across industries as well. Like, by knowing that founders tend to engage with the offer best between 11 and 50 employees, right? That pattern being extracted, and then potentially just, taking a link from one of these companies or two of these companies that are very, very similar to each other and throwing it into Disco-like, you have your next campaign and its logic queued up to be shot into a workflow right off the rip.
Yeah.
So continued iteration becomes easier. Now, to dig into the CLI a little bit, just to finish off here, I do have something running in the background here that I can probably show. Let's see here. Yeah, go for it.
I know you referenced auto research by Karpathy. So how are you using that particular model in your workflows, and have you fed that into that? Has it fed its own learning into the loop, and then have you seen improvement through it yet?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So the way I do it is I create, I think everyone can relate here that if you do a deep research process, you can usually find information. And so I start off the loop by doing deep research on individual companies and I create what's called ground truth, right? So I create a sample set of 10, 20, 30 companies. And as you go after different companies of different sizes, you're going to have different kind of ground truth systems for each size. But out of the box in the GitHub, you'll find Clayagents that will, and you don't have to use them as Clayagents is the beauty of it. You can just use them via SerperDev because that's its baseline kind of understanding of how to conduct this research. But the agents you'll find in there are 90 to 95% accurate out of the box. And it gives you a really good baseline. And using the CLI, you can do some pretty cool things. So this is just a campaign that's kind of feeding in. And I'll show you the summary of what we did as well, actually. So this has a summary. So while you guys were talking, I said, let's just make a lookalike quickly using the Disco-like CLI of one of our best clients. And I'll show you the awful terminal interface of what that looks like quickly, and then we can dive into the table. And all this did is, so I have this market qualification flow here, right? This is just a version of another, LG-based market qualification flow. And this is our holy grail workflow. So what I like to do with our workflows is I like to make everything optional and kind of color-coded. So you can see here that we have a stupendous amount of leads. It comes in, it fills in the blanks from LinkedIn. Clayagent's going to be really, really good for LinkedIn data. Fills in the blanks from LinkedIn. It can be turned on or maintained off depending on how you choose to use the CLI. But basically, first step is let's fill in missing data. Let's qualify based on size. Let's qualify based on a simple description qualification, and let's move on to segmentation. Inside of segmentation is where most of the magic actually happens, and we leave it optional based on what you want to fetch. And so the reason we do this in a master workflow kind of way for our what I would call our broad targeting workflows that we start with is because you can just quickly make decisions on, the playbook you want to run. Do you want to reference technology? Do you want to see if they have a sales related hire in the last, 30 days? Do you want to find their sales team and see the size of their sales team? Do you want to do an employee call out play? Do you want to do a recent hiring data play, so on and so forth? And everything in yellow, basically, you can choose to use, and it's mapped to only work on qualified companies because you only send qualified companies to the table. And then using Claude Code, we built out formulas that you wouldn't really be able to build out in Clay because they're just so stupendously long. You would never get Clay to generate this ever. So that's another great use case for everyone here. It can be hard to discern everything in a tech stack. So what we did is we took a sample size of tech stacks from our tables, and we started creating formulas that give us PLG signals on whether or not they're doing product-led growth versus sales motions as a SaaS, identify if they're using a CRM based on their website, what tools they're using based on their website, and what that means. Do they have ad spend? Do they not have ad spend? Are they worth checking? Are they not worth checking? And this is all free stuff that can inform where you take your workflows. So you're not checking for ads on every single business if they don't even have a pixel on their site, for instance, which is just silly. Before this ever hits Clay, what's happening behind the scenes, and this is the one that's still populating over here. What happened behind the scenes is the CLI duplicated that table you just saw, the master table. It created a webhook. You guys will be able to do this out of the box. It created a webhook, spawned it, and then fired this data directly into the table. You can actually see it auto-mapped everything. So if I want to just click turn on and run, which I'm going to do because I know everything that's happening on this table, I can just click turn on and run. And it's not only going to run this, it's going to move on to the segmentation. And if you have a table that you're happy with, you can codify that on a per client basis. So once we say this is the system that works for this client, we can turn off everything that doesn't work and just start piping more data into the workflow we're happy with. This makes it so that you can move beyond the list as the message and move into kind of mining messages. And then you can take that analysis of positive replies, right? And the pattern recognition to inform what you do on the next one with all of the optional workflows readily available to you and every single Clayagent that you have in here available to you to use. Top 3 competitors, recent company news, whatever you want, it's available to you. And you can continue to iterate on these quickly by using the CLI again to review the table data. So instead of having, an agent that you're wrestling back and forth with, when you finish a table, you can do, a substantial review of all the work that happened with it to identify patterns where Clayagent is coming up short. I can say, review the top 100 with a smart agent and tell me what patterns happen to be failing across this workflow. So to finalize, I'm going to go quickly through how easy it was inside of Claude Code to spawn this table just while we were talking here. And then I'll leave the floor open because I have taken up way too much time because I'm an absolute top yapper when it comes to Claude Code shit. Anyway, so in the background, basically all I asked of this workflow, unfortunately it deleted some of it. All I asked of this workflow is to use the Disco-like CLI. I gave it one website. I said, here's the geos and here's the employee count. Pull that, duplicate our master Clay table, create a webhook, and then push the leads directly in here. Now you could skillify that fully. I prefer going back and forth in the chat on stuff like this. I prefer pulling ICP data on a per client basis because I would hate if it pulled the ICP data of the wrong client as I go through these workflows. If you start things right, you're always set up for success. So I'm more a fan of working in this way. It pulls all the data from the Disco-like CLI. I'll give it to you guys. The CLI will make it so that you don't have to worry about continually having to clog your context with MCPs. It then ran through our list normalizer. Our list normalizer uses a free open source GitHub to pull their tech stack, to check if the domain is alive, to get rid of dead domains, to check the MX provider of the domain, and actually just immediately remove security gateways, and then pushes directly into Clay. And everything that has an active domain and no security gateway runs through our workflow. Everything that doesn't gets saved for later to see if we can identify a net new domain that they may have rebranded to. But that's about it. That's the baseline for you guys there. Hope that helps.
Next level. We got a few
That's a lot of
questions.
sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah, dive in. I'm going to link the Auto Researcher GitHub for you guys as well. And yeah, maybe you can dive into some questions.
That's some really good stuff. Well presented, man. That's nice.
Adam's got a question I'll put on the stream. So how are you finding out about the sequences they're running, generic copy, inbound, outbound, etc.?
Oh, you mean from clients, Adam? Or what do you mean? How are you finding about the sequences they're running? Oh, I see. For the tech stack. Okay.
For research.
Yeah. So sometimes in the tech stack, they'll actually have like a pixel for outbound technologies. Instantly pixel shows up. You can pull out RB2B pixel. You can pull out, a few. And I think because Instantly does website monitoring now as well. Basically, any outbound tool that does website monitoring, you can capture that and make some decent assumptions on how mature they are in their go-to-market motions, because that's relatively advanced. And so the beauty of Claude Code is that if you just take even just like Aaron Oslovsky's SaaS list that he just put out, like 177K companies, and you run a free tech stack checker, just look up GitHub tech stack checker and grab one. There's so many. Pull the DNS, pull out the HTTP, and on all those businesses, and just start building formulas, proprietary ones that you can run and figure out a lot of cool stuff about businesses out of the box. And then everything else you need, their stack. It's the best enrichment in Clay. It's probably the number one reason I'll never leave Clay, because it's not worth paying for the API. You can find out the world from their stack. Like, it's disgusting. Like, if you want to know if someone's hiring specifically to build customer service AI agents, historically for the last 2 years, and they have someone leading that on their team, Sniper Campaign out of the box, their stack does it for you.
What would you put in a tier stack enrichment to find that, for example?
So you would use a mixture of semantics as well as tech stack. So on the tech stack side, there's a lot of agentic customer service bots and ticketing systems that you would plug into there. And you would want people that know how to use it. And then there's a lot of customer success-based agentic frameworks, like specifically. And so
Makes sense.
you would actually run an exclusion on developers, and you would actually look for them hiring customer success that focuses on things like AI CSAT, for instance.
Got you. I'm with you. That's smart.
Yeah. But a lot of that's down to the research. But yeah, I would heavily recommend trying out Auto Researcher. Let me grab the Disco-like CLI. I think that's one of the best. Like, if you want to move to 100% Claude Code workflows, like list building, I think custom lists that are enriched from, proprietary custom databases, online, government portals, things like this, enriched and then move through your workflow, very doable. If you want to keep lists inside Claude Code, that plus Disco-like. If you want to, use the Clay CLI, the final thing you can do is like create your own custom API calls, which is something I forgot to mention. So using that tunneling thing, if you wanted to, you could have a custom API call like we have that's just for LinkedIn data. So Clayagent grabs LinkedIn data for, a 20th of a cent, right? Very accurately. And so say we wanted to have a workflow like in that Launch Club list you saw targeting founders that are very active on LinkedIn. We can just go through and grab founders that have like really, really high follower accounts, and only the ones that have high follower accounts will we enrich their posts, right? And just use an Apify actor. And we can tunnel that directly into that Clay table and literally use it the same as an API call, which is fucked. You could just have one table dedicated to all their stack API calls. You could have one table dedicated to all the other types of API calls. And if you get really fancy, because Clay gives you these tables or columns that you can inject information into, you can actually inject the criteria of using their stack in with the contact or the company. So you can just be like, I only want people in their stack description, right? That have AI CSAT and you never have to go in Clay. You can just inject it directly in as long as you normalize your schema. Very important. Normalized schemas.
One thing which I've always been
Please,
averse
Kush.
to.
Yeah.
By the way, like you got me sold completely on Clay CLI. I've been trying to stay away from it. My only averseness towards it comes from the fact that all of this stuff is reverse engineered based on internal API endpoints that Clay does have. And then
Yes.
the fragility lies in the fact that if Clay updates an endpoint that you're using in the background, then your entire system breaks, right? But it does feel like that you have been using it for a bit and that does not seem to happen. So
Never happens.
then that's good. Actually that is the only sole reason
The
that
only
I've
thing
not.
you'll struggle with is like building tables within Clay. A lot of these core mechanisms, like the tables, the workspaces, the workbooks, like they stay super like they haven't changed the way you duplicate a table in Clay in like 18 months. It's just 18 months ago, I couldn't think of a way to actually make use of any of this shit. But once you have like the difference between my Clay CLI and the one Brandon Charleston made is just that I had it map out how to access with Agent Browser all of the network files so that when things break, it can actually just go and look at the new codes and anneal itself.
I see.
Yeah. That's
It does
smart.
that at the moment. That's already built into the CLI that you have made. If
That's
it
built
changes-
into my CLI, but it's not public because I haven't actually checked to see if there's anything that I shouldn't be sharing in it. But you guys can do everything I discussed today using Brandon Charleston's.
Got it. That's helpful. The other thing that I wanted to ask you was before anything flows into the Clay CLI, you do a check whether a domain is alive or not. How do you do
Yes.
that? In Claude Code, where does that process run in the background if you're doing it for, let's say, like a couple of thousand domains at a go?
Yeah, so you can just use like a quick crawl for AI, like HTTPS check, right? And you're just looking for a status 200 code. There's 100 different ways to do it. The fastest way to do it is to use a Rust library for it. It'll run super duper fast, crush your whole list in like seconds. The second thing I'm doing is a DNS lookup. Again, open source libraries for this. I don't even remember the one I used. I just grabbed like the first one that showed up when I looked it up on GitHub. By the way, good exercise. The moment you go to build something, do a quick github.com open source thing I need. It exists. Like there's so many crack devs out there that have been building this stuff like for decades. You can just steal it. Same goes if you're trying to build like a dashboard. Just go grab like someone's baseline, like agency dashboard. Everyone's probably building a mission control and agency dashboard. There's an open source one to model off of out there, 100%. That's all I did. And I do that check because, I mean, as we know, Mimecast sucks. I've been removing Mimecast for like 6 months now. Barracuda sucks. I like to remove all these security gateways to make sure there's nothing on my initial campaigns that can prevent me from getting real feedback. Like, I don't want anything to, you know, like, why would you want to risk not hitting a great Google domain because your domain got burned from hitting a terrible security gateway, right? So we just filter those out before we even check for the email now. We just filter them out at the domain level.
That makes sense. And when you do this, trigger this run, this check using whatever you're using to basically check the dead or alive domain, that happens locally. And if it does happen locally, how do you make sure that all of this information that was done in and run is captured for later so that you can basically logs, right? How do you ensure that your logs are exhaustive enough and they're captured and you can revisit it or somebody in your team can revisit to say that, okay, we built this lookalike and all of these things happened. There is like a list that is stored for later because we were not able to do XYZ things, operations on top of it. But if you want to pick this later, not you, but somebody in the team, how do they resume from there?
Like from Claude Code.
Yeah, I'm basically like trying to think that if multiple people, this is like a problem for me, right? How do multiple people tag team into different runs from the past and pick up and collaborate across workflows when using Claude Code as an orchestration layer? So that's the premise.
On my team, everyone usually owns their lists end to end. The one exercise we have is like on stand-ups, ask yourself, like, can this list apply to another client so we can not double enrich stuff that we shouldn't be double enriching? But additionally, everything goes into our Supabase as well. And we tend to tag things like super semantically inside Supabase. So not only does every list get uploaded, every list can have multiple tags associated with it. So it's sortable. So like if I want to, like, all of our lookalike lists, we can say like lookalike of SEO marketing agencies, like super semantically out. So you can actually like sift through and analyze the list that we already have pre-built readily available to us. Speaking of, the other thing with the CLI is that you can export entire clay tables programmatically and also surf through your folders. The first thing everyone should do is build a Supabase out of just exporting all of their clay table data. You'll just make sure you normalize it to your schema, right? Merge everything, get rid of duplicates, but you're going to save yourself so much freaking money. And as long as you've named your clay tables well, you'll also be able to go back and look at previous work when you built that cracked list of people with issues on Reddit, you know? And like you just, I have another marketing agency that does Reddit. I'm going to use that list and we're going to hit the ground running, right? But yeah, for me, like I think the biggest thing is like Claude Code for data manipulation, not necessarily enrichment, because you guys are going to run into concurrency issues. Shit's going to break. You're going to have to get a list done in an hour. And for some odd reason, like your waterfall broke, or for some odd reason, like Claude's like, actually the rate limit's half of what it is. Like Clay on legacy plans handling this shit out of the box, like there's a reason they're charging, because it's actually very challenging to build a queue of 2 million calls that doesn't get lost. Like it's not easy. So that's the big thing for me.
Great point.
Yo, this is next level. I think, yeah, like what Josh said. We just can't wait to throw everything in the transcripts and just define words that people haven't heard of in their vocabulary. So yeah, I think we're nearly at time. But has anyone got like? Because I'm also mindful that, you know, obviously everyone here is, you know, very experienced in Claude Code, but some people are just getting into it, right? So do you guys have like we'll go around and like have one word of advice on how to, like get to a level of Claude Code that is, you know, of good competency, would you say? I'll go to you, Andrew, first. And then we'll
Don't jump, guys. Come on.
Great question. I think for me, something I said when I was sharing my screen is, do not get overwhelmed by the giveaways. I think that's the main thing I'll say, because you could very easily just pull 100 go-to-market skills into your repo and just have no idea what's happening or why it's happening. You can definitely download them, go into them and see what you can pull into your context. But I will definitely say just build skills one by one, man. Like things that you're actually doing. And if you see yourself doing it multiple times, just say, oh, let me turn this into a skill. In fact, to take it a step further, just leverage the /insights in Claude Code. It's very, very good. It will tell you what you're doing wrong. Like it tells me like, bro, why are you going back and forth? Just make a skill. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. I'll make a skill. So /insights is really good. Build things one by one. And slowly it'll begin to make sense what you need to do next.
love that.
How
about you?
I can kind of tag on to that. I actually think like even before you build a skill, get all of the CLIs you need set up. Get your .env fully set up, because a big inhibiting factor to you building a workflow that actually remembers what you wanted at the start by the end is if it has to do something big in between. So like if you're building a skill and halfway through the skill, it has to completely set up to instantly CLI with 54 different skills for every single API call, it's going to forget that you want to be able to upload leads in a specific format, or that your curly brackets have to be like this, right? So there's this great library called CLI Anything. And I think the other great starter library is it's called Get Shit Done. I'm sure you guys have seen this one as well. But these are proper frameworks with commands that will guide you through the process of building a project, controlling a GitHub, and like really hold your hand. This is what I use. I love that it holds my hand personally. Claude's an absolute genius, way better at coding than me, way better at building stuff than me. Your job is to think about how things fit together. Let Claude handle the complex work and don't get too caught up in it, or you're going to turn yourself into a software dev when you're trying to be a marketer when it comes to go-to-market, right? And then the final thing I would add as like the best possible tip is think about version control of what you do early. And the way you'll think about that is by reading Anthropic docs. Okay, they're the holy grail of everything. They have something called work trees you're going to want to look into. And when I say version control, I mean like if you accidentally update a skill because you built something new and it sucks now, you want to be able to go back to when it was good without rolling everything else back. Okay? But yeah, go ahead, Kush.
Love that. Yeah, well, gents, thank you very much for your time and sharing all the source and the wisdom. Like I wasn't lying when I said I've got three of the best like Claude Code operators in the space. Like I think that you guys are setting the gold standard for sure, like 100%. So yeah, thank you very much, and thank you everyone on the chat for joining us today. And yeah, we'll share the recording. But yeah, have a good week, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, Nafar. That was fun, man. I
That
want
was
to do this again
fantastic, man.
sometime.
Sorry for taking up all your time.